The greatest lie that you can tell is the one that's closest to the truth. Now, the idea of a greater Israel or a Judean state that goes from the Nile River to the Euphrates is not Bible-based nor Torah-based. Political Zionism relies on historical illiteracy and biblical illiteracy in order to maintain its project. Any pastor that tells you that the Judeans were promised from the Nile to the Euphrates either hasn't read the Bible or history enough to be teaching, or is deliberately lying, and definitely shouldn't be teaching. Now, it sure as heck does say, "To your offspring I assign this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates." That's God's promise to Abraham, that his descendants will live in the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. But the deception is that political Zionism has changed the meaning of the descendants of Abraham to, instead of mean the descendants of Abraham, to mean the descendants of the kingdom of Judah. Now, if you know anything about the Bible, you'll know that Abraham had more than one son. He had a son named Ishmael, and his descendants, the Ishmaelites, are now known as the Arabs. Judah, where Judaism, the religion of the kingdom of Judah, came from, was Abraham's great-grandson. As you know, Father Abraham had many sons had father, you know that song? He had a lot of descendants that weren't just Judah. And this prophecy of Abraham's descendants living from the Nile to the Euphrates, yeah, that is a biblical prophecy, and it was actually fulfilled. It's not one that's going to be fulfilled by a Zionist entity ethnically cleansing the Levant. It's one that was fulfilled by the Muslims. See, the Ishmaelites, the Arabs, the descendants of Abraham, when they defeated the Romans and drove the Europeans out of the Middle East, they liberated Jerusalem from the pagan Romans and brought the Judeans back to Jerusalem. They fulfilled the prophecy of Abraham's descendants living from the Nile to the Euphrates. So that absolutely is a Bible verse, and it actually came true already. Now, I'm not going to get into whether or not the European Judeans, the Ashkenazis, are biological descendants of Abraham. It's kind of not related to this point. But it is factual that in the book of Genesis, God promises the descendants of Abraham the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. And it is factual that that happened when the Muslims defeated the Romans and brought the Jews back to the Holy Land. And for y'all that keep quoting Ezekiel and Jeremiah and Daniel about the Judeans returning to Jerusalem, well, that kind of happened then too, didn't it? The Judeans had been in Jerusalem since Salahuddin defeated the Crusaders, and again brought the Judeans back to Jerusalem. Even the golden age of Judaism occurred under the Caliphate. The golden age of Islam and the golden age of Judaism happened at the same time in the same place. There is no return to Jerusalem that's happening right now. The Judeans have been there over 1,000 years. Many of the descendants of the Judeans had converted to either Christianity or Islam. And those are the ones that the Europeans are now currently cleansing from the Holy Land. So when the Zionist is removing people from the Holy Land, they're actually removing descendants of Abraham. By all accounts, there are no Judean or Christian scholars that say that the Ishmaelites are not the descendants of Abraham. They are fully aware that the Arabs are descendants of Abraham, and those are the ones that they're waging war against, based on their ethnicity, whether they're Christian or Muslim. And this is why political Zionism relies on biblical illiteracy. They need you to not know history in order to support their schemes, because if people would actually read their Bible, they would realize that stuff like the state of Israel is not a prophecy. Nowhere in the book of Revelations, nor in any of the Old Testament prophecies, is there a prophecy of a state of Israel. And there's a hell of a lot more things that are not in the Bible that modern Christian political Zionism teaches are in the Bible in order to maintain their political structures.